You're welcome to Business Daily on Trust TV. I'm your host, Chamun Dabeng. Let's talk numbers. We're starting off with the market this morning. You're welcome back, and once again, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Now, we have heard several discussions on how the Nigerian economy must be grown, but there are parts of the economy that remain largely untouched and ignored. The rural society, or the villages, which, by the way, represent a substantial proportion of Nigeria's population, have played a very important role in the supply of both humans and materials needed by various sectors of the economy. The sad part is that many Nigerian authorities and previous governments are predisposed to neglect, if not relegate it to the background. Now, the village economy has seen vicious cycles of poverty, poor infrastructure, high population density, high levels of illiteracy, low social interaction and local politics, and rural-urban migration. Why does this very important part of Nigeria keep getting ignored? As globalization becomes a bigger part of the life of millions of Nigerians living in the urban areas, worsened the situation in the villages. Now, joining me on the show today to discuss the forgotten village economy is economist Dr. Aliyu Audu and public affairs analyst Agaba Wilson Agaba. Now, before my guests make their contributions, we will take another excerpt from the 19th Daily Trust Dialogue, where former chairman of FIRS, Afieko Omoigui, spoke on the village economy. Let's take a look.
We have at least 5 civilizations or societies. The society at the village economy level, the typical town or city economy, the mega town, the Lagos, Abuja, Kano economy, different from the smaller city. And then those who've lived in African cities who bring to bear other African cities that have certain level of order and expect to replicate exactly that in Nigeria, without considering our own realities. And then we have the Western-style economy, which is influenced by the larger multilateral institutions, driven by their mindsets of how we should grow the economy. And in all this, the point at which your resources are, the point at which our people are, is at the village level. But what do we have at the village level? What do we have at that level? We have people who don't want to go to the village anymore. We have people who, once they leave the village, they don't want to go back. We have abandoned lands, farmlands of our grandfathers, our ancestors, which have been taken over by people who see the value, but none of them are from the area, so they don't even understand. And sometimes it's just cash to take out, but not sustainable development, as has been said. Many years ago, and I'll leave with this, my great-grandfather, his name is Oviawe, didn't want my grandfather to go to school. And when I was told this story, it was more like, can you imagine your great-grandfather didn't want you to go to school? You know? But he fought it. And why did he fight it? He felt that what was going on was going to become the abandonment of the village. In retrospect, he was right. Because what we have done is that we have now taken education, not the Nigerian style education, not a community type education, education that has come from a Western style economy, to educate those in the village, to show as if the Western style is better. We do not know the resources we have. We do not value our strengths. And unfortunately, what insecurity is now doing, it's worsening it, because people are now fleeing the villages. Those that were left growing the food are now fleeing because of insecurity, worsening the economic situation. And yet we know the root causes are that they too want justice. They too want opportunity. They too want opportunity and equality.
It was actually very interesting listening to her talk about the village economy and how a lot of that part has been neglected by previous governments and even the state government, or, you know, whoever the authority is that's supposed to take care of these areas. And I do remember many of us would actually come out and, you know, talk about our own experiences whenever we go to the villages and how we go there to meet the level of development. Now, I do remember for the most part of my childhood and even my teenage years, going back home to the village, there was no electricity for the longest time. There was no flowing water, and these were periods in time where other cities or larger cities were already developed, even within the state. You could go to, you know, the more urban areas, and, you know, there's water, there's electricity. They have not great roads, but better roads as compared to what was in the village. And this is the situation in so many other states. So why is it that this area that is, you know, responsible for a lot of the agriculture that we have today being so relegated to the background? Let me start off with you, Dr. Liu.
Well, thank you very much. I think it's negligence on the part of the state government, negligence on the parts of the chairman of local governments, negligence on the parts of councillors, because there's a system of leadership that from the state government, it goes to the local government chairman and then to the councillors. And these people are responsible for the direct development of their states or villages. Mm-hmm. Now, what you tend to find out is that most of this problem emanates from the state government, because resources are not deployed to the necessary offices, the local government chairman offices, to carry out these projects. They are largely neglected. And this is the reason why you're seeing that there's too much focus on the capital city and less attention is paid to the villages. And this is where we're generating our agriculture. This is where a lot of the food we eat come from. Mm-hmm. So it's important, some level of development, especially water, roads, and electricity are provided. But you notice that since these people are economically not powerful, enough attention is not paid to them, they're completely neglected. So a lot, at some point the federal government was trying to give independency to local governments, so that they will be able to manage their budgets directly without the interference of the state government. I don't know how far that has gone, but until that is done, I don't think you're going to see any development coming to the local government areas.
Yeah, because former chairman Moegui, she did actually make a statement at the beginning where she said it's very difficult for you to sit down in those high places and make sure that development comes to the smaller places. Like, there are bodies or, you know, certain authorities that should be responsible for all of that, and they do need to be given that level of independence to carry out their jobs and make sure that is actually done. All right, Mr. Wilson, let me hear from you.
Over the years, we have actually neglected the rural society because we also let our development go in the negative direction. Our politics turned from an instrument for societal development to instrument of personal aggrandizement. And then we continued on that trajectory. And before, we used to have problem of leadership. But as of today, we now have a problem of also followership. A followership that does not think us, but think I. Now, as you can see today, if you go close to these politicians, sometimes you want to justify what they do. Because you go and see maybe a House of Rep member today, and you will sit down and see the number of chiefs coming from his constituency. And when they come there, the only thing they talk about is their personal interest, what they want for themselves, for their children, for their friends' children, and all of that. Nobody talks about the society. Now, if you go back to the villages, what are the source of their economic activities? It's usually agriculture. In our environment here, nothing more than agriculture. I think a very high percentage of our villages dwell on agriculture. But how well have we developed the agricultural value chain? A lot of the food produced in the villages are still wasting because there's no system to mop it up. There's no market system for them to sell at a good price. I grew up in the village. Back then, we would cultivate cassava, process gari, and when we take it to the market, it is those people who come to buy that will determine the price at which they will buy, not the cost of production. So you see, we take gari to the market sometimes, and we sell at the price just to go and pay the other services in the process that through which we made the gari. Pay the engine people, pay the people who transported it and all of that, you have nothing. So they virtually sell at a loss. And because of that, people in town are facing the issue of food price hike. Because there are food in our villages going bad, and there is no plan on how to move the food from place of excess to the place where it is needed. You also talk about the issue of financial infrastructure. These people who produce this agricultural produce, they need money to be able to upgrade their farming system. But most times they have no access to the formal source of fund, so they are left with only loan sharks who give them small money and squeeze life out of them. And most of them, they leave debt, bequeath debt to their children as well. And their children pick up from there. Now, we also have the issue of the land tenure system. Government at the state level, just like he said, should actually pay attention to these issues, where you can bring some sort of mechanization to the village. Because one of the things I've heard a lot of politicians say is that, okay, these people are producing very little in this village, they are producing very little in this village, you need so amount of money to even open up the road to that village, you need this. So it's not doable. You have to open up roads to thousands of villages. But how about you do clusters? If we can have farmers come together in clusters, can have 1,000 hectares, 3,000 hectares, they are still the same farmer. They still own the land, but you have now made the land a cluster, and then you can station equipment for them, and you can now do some kind of investigation research, which we have done in the past with some companies already, and then it was never taken. You see what grows better, what the competitive advantage of some local communities are. You choose your state, like in Benue State, where we have 23 local government. In the 23 local government, each of the local government have competitive advantage in certain areas. And these things are needed both in the country and outside this country. So we can develop clusters within these 23 local government, for instance, and each of them produce what they are best at. And each of them, the government provides equipment and support according to what they are producing. That way, they can produce at a cheaper cost. And then the government can actually mop up and market it. Therefore, you will create jobs in the rural society. You can even build schools in the clusters of the farms. You can even build health facility, thereby improving their health situation. You can provide different amenities there because there's going to be a cluster around the farm. And human beings are now living there. You can improve their lifestyle. And I guarantee you there are a lot of people who want to live in the villages. Nobody wants the hustle and bustles of the town every day. So if we do these simple things, we'll simply improve the economy of the rural society.
It's even more than just improving the economy. It's about them feeling included as part of the country. Because we take a look at, different parts of the country, the bigger cities, you look at Abuja, you look at Lagos, you look at, Port Harcourt and the rest of them, and you see, large levels of development coming to places like that. But you go to the village, they're excluded from even financial institutions.
Yes.
They have to travel an hour, 2 hours to get to the closest bank. They don't have water, they don't have electricity. We have phones today, but how many of them can actually afford a phone? And even when they do, there's an issue of connection. They are largely excluded from the rest of the country, and that's something that they want to feel, to be included in what is going on.
Generally, I think recently I was watching a program and somebody was talking about these insecurity issues. If you go deeper into the causes of these insecurities that we have today, we have issues of unemployment, issues of overpopulation, issues of negligence from the government and all of that. But the reason you see bandits and terrorists taking hold in certain states is because of large expanse of ungoverned land. You see a large area of land, nothing is happening there, and so nobody surveys it. So, but if you don't take care of the rural community, this will keep happening. So you can see bandits go and put a tent in an area, and then they can be there and nobody can see them. And they come to the road, pick people and take back there. These are arable lands that the government can put to use. You look at our financial system. I have worked in the bank before, and I can tell you that it doesn't make sense for a commercial bank, which is a private business, and whose sole aim is profit making, to go and establish branches in the villages. Because you count on the number of transactions and the turnover. But then the government can do something about it. You can give me incentive to open a branch there. And what are these incentives? By putting up projects there that will increase transaction volumes.
Yeah.
If you open up those local communities and put projects there that brings transaction to the bank will go there. But where you don't do that, no bank will take their branches to that place because they have to provide security. They have to hire staff. They have to, and even taking money or the required resources from their city branches to the rural branches is another issue. They have to make money. Nobody is going to open branches that is going to make them profit all the time. I mean, losses all the time.
All right, so we actually went out to the streets to talk to Nigerians and asked them how they felt, the governments have actually included their own communities where they personally reside within the state itself, the state of Abuja. So let's take a look at that.
Recently, we have felt some kind of impact that there is government.
What is it precisely?
Yeah, there's this road construction going on, which is an old colonial road that connects Dede to Maraba. So this road has been dilapidated and is beyond, it's not motorable at all. So we have been suffering, but from last year, construction started and it was done halfway, and by God's grace, we thought that it is going to be an abandoned project as usual. But eventually we were surprised when the US government started and completed the remaining, and even reconstructed the places that got spoiled. So now the road is okay. Well, there is improvement in electricity, which for the past 2 years has been terrible, actually. But from during that COVID, during that COVID period when all offices were shut down and people were asked to go home, since then electricity has been a little bit stable.
I think the roads are okay. They have good roads. That is good road network.
Okay.
The electricity, the planning of the area is okay. They should go and improve in the water supply. Hereby there will be water board supplying the houses. instead of individual having the boreholes.
In my area council,
Yeah.
I think the chairman is trying because since the inception of on duty, there are some roads that he have rehabilitated. I think he's trying. I feel the impact of road, and some is still ongoing, and I think he may do something.
Well, where we live mostly, there are individuals who live there. There are more of individuals who live and dwell there. So the presence of government is not felt much. One, the roads are not good. Number two, light issue. Number three, we have problem of infrastructural development. It's not as we're expecting. I'm talking in terms of, especially when rainy season comes, you know that Trademore side is always affecting, not just Trademore, but so many estates around there is almost affecting that area. So in that case, we expect government to come in. Maybe there should be a kind of an agreement between private and government. Let's see how this can be stopped, because every year so many houses are being lost and properties and other resources as well. So it's not helping that much. Government may be doing, but we need to feel the impact. The impact is what, we should be talking about. Government cannot give 100%. Okay, it is a 50-50 thing. We contribute, the government comes, the private, the individual come, or the masses come, and then we work together.
All right, so those were our fellow Nigerians out there talking about where they personally stay and the level of economic inclusion that they felt from the government. All right, so listening to this video and listening to people talk, we had some people praising the government, saying, okay, there's been a good supply of electricity, there's been good roads so far, they're building roads in those areas. But then we also have other people saying, oh no, we've had electricity issues, we've had water issues, and the roads are poor in this area. And looking at this within the state capital, what would you say about this disparity between the, should I call them communities at this point, the different communities within Abuja? Because you can go to places like Maraba, like the village areas, or Jahi village, and you actually see the condition of these areas. And you wonder, how difficult is life for these people living there? Yeah. Let me start off with you.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a very critical and important question, because development is not evenly distributed. As you can see, if you come into the center of Abuja, it's more developed than the satellite towns like Maraba, Kubwa, and Nyanya, and what have you. And this is not very good, because it's important that the government has to step up to provide more infrastructure. We have deficiency of almost 20 million housing units. A settlement like Maraba and Nyanya should not be allowed to exist within the FCT. I mean, if we're serious about development, because we're trying to move from a developing country to a developed country. And these are models that countries have used before. If you look at Singapore, Singapore was worse than Nigeria in the 60s. It took their leader to develop them. If you look at Dubai, Dubai 30 years ago was a desert. It took one man's vision to develop and make Dubai what it is. We should have leaders that are ready to develop the country. Now, having satellite towns, Kubwa, Nyanya, the level of infrastructure is very low, and something needs to be done about it, especially the housing program over there. Right now, you find out that the houses are in clusters, and there's no proper road network system, there's no proper water. I think this should be addressed, and as such, the road system is not good. There was sometime last year, it was very sad, there was a trailer accident, and a lot of people died. And since then, there was a plan to expand the road, work started, and all of a sudden it died down. So what am I saying? I'm saying that more resources need to be concentrated on these areas. It's not necessarily the government has to do it themselves. They should go into PPP partnerships. If you can't provide the infrastructure, there are banks and there are private citizens that are ready to do that, and businesses. So the government should take it more serious in partnering with different, the private sector through PPP program in order to bring development. The level of development taking place within the cities is very slow, extremely slow, because nations that we have started with or that we started before have gone very far. Look at Malaysia. I mean, this is why they criticize us and call us developing countries, poor nations, because we have settlements like Nyanya, we have settlements like Maraba, we have settlements like Kubwa. And it's not that we do not have the resources, we have the resources. It just takes, if they really want to work, develop Kubwa, Kubwa in its whole self needs to be completely demolished. So what normally happens in development? No.
That's quite extreme.
No.
I hope residents of
You have to make a choice.
Yes.
You have to make a choice whether you want to remain, to be a developing, struggling country or to get to a developed country.
All right,
This is what is happening in China. That's why China is the first world country today. This is what happened in Russia. This is what's happening in Dubai.
All right, so
we have
unfortunately,
to make a choice. The level, when you're building, there has to be a building plan, there has to be fire escape routes, there has to be a road network. They don't have that. And we are keeping ourselves by saying that we want to keep that. We shouldn't. People should be relocated to another developed settlement, maybe on Airport Road, another piece of land, and that place should be demolished and restructured.
All right, so unfortunately, we don't have enough time to fully get into this, but it's, I'm not going to lie, it seems quite extreme because there are people that actually live there and have their families there and have their businesses there.
They'll be relocated.
Well,
and then that whole place will be redeveloped. That's what's happening in China.
All right, so I think that would have to be a discussion for another day. We do not have enough time to finish the discussion. There were other parts that I would have loved to touch, but, time is not on our side. All right, so I would like to thank my guests in the studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson, and thank you so much, Dr. Aliyu, for being a part of the show. And to our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to follow us on our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just look us up at Trust TV News. You definitely find us there. Well, once again, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Come back again for more Business Daily. Let's talk numbers.